Warning, the following content contains sensitive topics that some viewers might find disturbing. These topics are shared with the intent to foster healing and growth, but they may be triggering for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. If you had told me a couple of months ago that I would be sharing my deepest, darkest secrets and traumas on the internet, I would tell you you got the wrong girl. I was ready to take my trauma to the grave. Even though we are going to be talking about some really heavy things in this episode, I want to keep most of it light because this is a victory story of overcoming the victim mentality, going from victim to survivor to warrior to thriver. What's up, guys? I'm Sanella, and welcome back to my channel and another episode of Spiritual Baddie. I've been sharing my life on the internet for 5 years now, and there's a story that I've always kept a secret despite being so open about every other area of my life. And ironically, it is probably one of the most integral pieces of why I am the way that I am today. This is not a video I ever thought I would be making, but a few months ago, Spirit started showing me signs that it was time to talk about this. It was time to break my silence, this divine push that I was getting from my spirit team and from my ancestors that were literally showing up in my dreams and telling me to do this. The more I tried to ignore that, the louder it got. And it started keeping me up at night. And your girl's tired. I want to go to sleep. My story is raw, it's messy, it's real, and it's mine. It was never my secret to carry. It was never my silence to hold. And I need to talk about this now so that I can open a larger conversation around abuse and trauma. I am a f***ing alchemist. I am a phoenix rising from the ashes. I did not just break generational curses and karmic cycles. I destroyed them and everything in my path. And if my ancestors are saying that I need to talk about this, the ancestors that went through the same shit as me and couldn't make it out, they couldn't do what I did, I need to talk about it. If the cancel culture went so far to the abusers instead of the abused, we would be living in a different world. Everyone says that they don't have any sympathy for people who abuse children or animals until that child grows up to be an adult. And then you shame them and say that they have mommy issues or daddy issues, when at the end of the day, that doesn't make them a bad person. You saying that to them makes you a bad person. None of us asked to be here. Every child deserves a parent, but not every parent deserves children. However, this is not to get revenge. This is not to shame my own family. This is my story to tell, though. I was abused by my family for pretty much my entire life in different ways at different stages of my life. I was physically abused by my father until I was 17 years old. And I'm going to tell you guys a story later. I did not really realize that I was being abused at all because I had been my whole life thinking that this was normal and that this happened to everybody. If I want to share my wisdom and I want to help people, that wisdom had to come from somewhere. That's something that it took me 28 years to realize. Finally, all of the trials and tribulations, and babe, I've been through the trials and tribulations, like... Sometimes it was almost comical how many would happen at once. I know now that this deep sense of purpose that I've had since I was a child is to share the wisdom that I've gained through my experiences. I've learned that growth comes from discomfort. It comes from being in really, really, really uncomfortable, painful situations. That's at least how it played out in my life. Shame is really, really hard to navigate when it's attached to trauma because we tend to internalize that. I had sat down to film this video like 5 times, and every time I would get to the part where I have to admit what happened to me, I would choke up, I would freeze up. I'm normally very, very good at articulating myself and what I'm feeling. Like, I pride myself on being a good communicator and being able to verbalize what I'm feeling inside. But this was... like, I was looking back at the footage. I'm like, damn, I've been talking for 40, 50 an hour. I still haven't mentioned the words. Where is this coming from? Let's unpack this. What is it about the trauma that I
feel like I am not safe sharing. I have always been in the mentality of, as much as it seems like my life is on the internet, I am a very, very private person. I know I can't shut the fuck up. Like people say like, oh, stop yapping, whatever, like stop oversharing. And I share a lot, but I promise it's always like literally this much of the iceberg. And then it's like, it gets so much worse. It's like the trials, the tribulations. People think that I'm like very spontaneous, but actually I just don't tell people my plans until they're like in motion, which, you know, I think that you should do. I don't think that you should trauma dump on other people, like strangers. Why do I think that sharing your trauma will get you hurt? I'm like, okay, well, some people unfortunately will use it against you once they have the chance to. And then I was like, wait, how can they use it against me if I own it and I put it out there myself? Because I was always scared of trying to like put on this image that I had done so much work on myself and I'm like this healed version of myself. I know I'm not perfect, but I really, really, really have made it my lifelong mission to work on myself. But what value, what weight does that hold if it doesn't give you the context of how messy my life had to be to get there? What kind of shit I had to overcome? It doesn't. Wait, if I don't keep this a secret, nobody can out me. What are they going to do? How are they going to use this against me if I'm putting it out there myself? What if I can set an example to change the narrative? Yeah, this is a fucking uncomfortable conversation. Yeah, that happened to me. Why the fuck would I be embarrassed about it? How are you going to use it against me? How? What are you going to do? I'm literally putting it out there right now. Yeah, some very bad shit happened to me. I went through all this shit and I'm still a cool ass person. I'm still kind. I didn't let it make me become cynical. Today, that realization that if I take it and I put myself in the vulnerable position, it's not vulnerable anymore. Yeah, it's mine. That happened. I own that shit. I realized I had been trying to put myself in these boxes. Am I this? Am I that? Am I being too much of this? Am I being too much of that? It was these polarized sides that I felt like I had to choose between what was right and what was wrong. But in that moment that I decided that I'm not going to internalize this. This is not my shame to carry. This is what happened to me. Yeah, what are you going to do about it? You're going to, what? You're going to judge me. You're going to make assumptions about me. You do that anyway. You're not going to like me. At the end of the day, I don't care if anybody doesn't like me. Most people don't even like themselves. Why would I give a fuck? There is literally nothing that anybody in the world can do to stop me from where I'm going. What is the difference between victim? Victim is it's still happening to you, or you are in the mentality of it's still happening to you. Survivor is you've managed to get yourself out, but you might still be dealing with PTSD or not really know how to navigate it further than that, acknowledging that it happened to you, but it's still holding a deep emotional weight on you. In circuses, they basically brainwash the elephants into thinking that they're small and weak, and that's how they get them not to run away. So they take the elephants when they're babies and they just tie their leg with a little rope to like a chair. When the elephant is a baby, it's obviously too small to get away. So they keep the baby elephant attached to the chair with a rope for a while. And eventually the baby elephant will grow into a full grown elephant, literally weighing over 4 tons. And we know that an elephant can uproot a tree. We know what kind of damage it could do. They don't know that because that baby elephant tries and tries and tries and tries and tries to escape every day. But one day, the baby elephant realizes that it's too little, it's not strong enough, and it stops. It gives up and it never tries again. Those circus people, they know that the real imprisonment isn't the fucking chair. It's the confines of their own mind. when we're struggling to shift from victim to survivor or survivor to warrior, we are putting ourselves in this mental prison. But I didn't want to be the baby elephant. And then I think the shift from survivor to warrior is when you really let go of the trauma, not in a way that you forget it, because I genuinely think that it shaped me into the person that I am today. And I'm at that point right now where I'm not going to let the burden of it hold me down. My family tried to put me in this box that I did not fit in. I literally felt like I was cramped in there. The box was too small. Like I couldn't stretch myself out. I couldn't be myself. Like I couldn't let loose in the box. And, as many times as I tried to wiggle out of the box, it felt like it was bolted shut. Like I couldn't get out. But then one day you realize that the box is made of cardboard, not steel. And you fucking open the box. You open the box, you get out of the box. Everybody's pissed that you got out of the box, but you got out of the box. You got out, you can breathe. You're not suffocating in that box anymore. Now you're in survivor, but the survivor still carries around this box with her. She's still carrying around the box. Even though she doesn't have anything inside of the box, she doesn't plan on ever going back inside the box. She's still carrying it around. It's getting in the way of all of her shit, all of her day-to-day tasks. And then one day, she decides that she literally doesn't need to carry the weight or the burden of this box anymore. She can recognize it. She remembers that she was in the box and how she felt when she was in the box without having to carry it around with her for the rest of her life, without having that weight on her. That is going from survivor to warrior. My family was always trying to put me in the same box as my older sister. I was constantly being compared and degraded by both of my parents in all aspects of my life. Why wasn't I as smart as her? Why wasn't I as skinny as her? Which it was, it damages you as a child. But again, I was constantly told my whole life that this was not abuse. I didn't realize the psychological, emotional, even spiritual abuse until I was actually well into my adulthood, probably 25, 26. But I had no privacy. My parents didn't understand the concept of action to punishment ratio. There was never a time frame. And sometimes it would be for no reason. But then a lot of times, I realized as I got older, and maybe this will help you if, you're young, if you're getting grounded for experimenting with things or sneaking out or coming home past curfew, those are normal, rebellious teenager things to do. Not that you're a rebellious teenager. It's normal to rebel and to experiment with those things. And looking back, I was not a perfect child. I was probably a little problematic, but I realized that a lot of my actions were not me being a bad kid, which they genuinely made me believe that I was a bad person, that there was something wrong with me, when they were really just a product of my environment. I would be grounded for an indeterminate amount of time, depending on what I did, which it was always something to, I had no privacy in my life. My parents were constantly going through my phone, especially my dad. There was one point he gave me a new phone, which some people are gonna be like, oh my God, you're so ungrateful. He gave you a new phone. He gave me a new phone. I didn't know that he had his Google account attached to it. So every picture I had ever taken on my phone was getting uploaded to his account. It literally makes me think of that Black Mirror episode. I was grounded for 8 months. 8 months. That isolation is literally psychological torture. It's actually insane. I had no phone. I had no computer. I had no access to the outside world. My friends would come to my window in the middle of the night to hang out with me. Growing up, I saw my dad being angry and seeing him in a position of power, which made me suppress my emotions because I saw my mom who was crying and she just seemed powerless, and that's how it registered in my head when I was growing up. So that manifested as me suppressing all of my emotions. And I talk about this in another video about how during my first ayahuasca ceremony, I literally cried for ugly cried for 5 hours straight because I didn't know how to feel any other emotion. Like I would literally hide it and I would suppress it until I was by myself. You know, even though my mom traumatized us in her own way, she was also a victim of her environment. But that didn't make it any easier. I can forgive them, not for them because their behavior was excusable or whatever, but just to release yourself from the emotional weight that carrying that resentment takes. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. I carried resentment for so many years. Like that shit was painful. It was up. And the fact that I had nowhere to run away either because I was so isolated. And when I finally graduated high school and I ended up going away to college, that feeling that I had no control over my whole life, as soon as I stepped foot into the real world and I got a taste of freedom, suddenly I didn't have a curfew anymore. I didn't have anybody who was gonna yell at me if I went out. It was like a violent act of freedom, but I put myself in a lot of very, very, very dangerous situations as a result of it. I can recognize that my parents were trying to protect me from bad influences or from the things that they experienced. But if you are a parent watching this, I promise, I know you think you're helping. You are literally setting up your child for failure. You are making your child resent you. They will hate you. They do not owe you anything. Do not be surprised when your child doesn't want to hang out with you when they're older. They're still going to do everything that they want to do. They just get a lot better at hiding it. And then they're going to grow up to think that they can't tell you anything. When you have no control over your life and you get in trouble for literally everything that you do, you don't know what is safe to say and what is not. So you just don't say anything at all. If they do actually f*** up and they really need your help, they're not going to feel like they can ask you for it. Is that what you want? Is that really what you want for your child? Because they're just going to think that you're going to either punish them or judge them. That has like a chokehold on you for the rest of your life until you heal it, And you're also preventing them from forming their own thoughts and opinions. They're more susceptible to peer pressure this way too. Is that what you want? Is that what you want? For your adult child to be experimenting with these things for the first time in an adult world, that's scary. So yeah, if you don't want your child to end up like I did in my first year of college, drinking a copious, dangerous amount of alcohol in a violent act of freedom and doing some really, really heinous things and some very, very self-destructive behavior, you are sending them out into the world with no tools, no experience, and no guidance. Is that helping your child in the end? It's not. It's not. Every time I had like more restrictions come down on my life, I just wanted to rebel more. I tried to run away so many times, like even though I knew like that was never going to work. Like I think the longest I was ever gone was for like 12 hours. And my parents always somehow manipulated me into coming back by scaring me, saying that they were going to call the cops on me for like stealing my car. Yeah, some crazy shit like that. But now being an adult, I realized that the more control that they tried to put on me, the more I tried to break free from that. And I tried to rebel even more. But my friends now that had like really laid back parents, like they were very close and they just kind of gave them like the freedom to be themselves and do what they wanted. Every single friend that I have like this today says like, I respected my parents so much for letting me do those things that I actually never ended up doing any of the bad things. Nothing good ever happens by force. You actually are having like the opposite effect. I can recognize that I can have compassion for my parents. I don't have to hold resentment towards them anymore, while still recognizing that these things made my life very difficult. I took a lot of distance from my family. I needed that. Sometimes you can't heal from the situation or you can't forgive them if you don't separate yourself from the situation. You cannot heal in the same place that made you sick in the first place. Like that's genuinely insanity, is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. Sometimes you have to separate yourself for a little bit. This is a long and painful process. Like it's not easy to get over these deep, deep familial wounds. Anyways, it was just crazy how so much of this was foreshadowed in my real life. I don't really watch TV unless I'm watching it with somebody else. Somebody put me on to the Menendez brothers series on Netflix, and I'm fully aware that there was a lot of misinformation in the show. I went back and actually fact checked all of it because I became really interested and invested in the case after watching the show. But I saw so many people commenting online saying that, like, oh, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you just stop it? Oh my God, I would never let anybody treat me that way. Oh, really, Jessica? That's great. Because that's probably because you've never been abused before. Like, most people don't even know that they're being abused. I didn't know I was being abused. I was literally gaslit and brainwashed into thinking that I was not abused. Like, I was literally told that. While I can be aware that my mom probably had it worse than me, she also told me, like, this isn't shit. This is, like, literally, it's fine. I don't even want to compare because, like, it's just like, where is the lesser two evils? Like, was the psychological torture and emotional abuse worse, or was it the physical abuse that actually ended at some point, you know? A lot of people don't know that they're being abused. Like, I genuinely was fully convinced that this happens to everybody, at least people in our culture. Also, all of this, like, made me believe that, like, I was genuinely such a bad person. The issues really started to be, like, more apparent when I was, like, around 13. And, you know, I see this is like when you are starting to form your own thoughts and opinions and rebel against your parents, which is normal development for a 12 to 13-year-old. But my mom made me start going to see the school guidance counselor, which was already so embarrassing because she, like, pulls you out of class and then everybody's like, ooh, you're in trouble. Because it was always just, like, the bad kids that would always get in trouble, like, getting pulled out of class to go with her. So my mom makes me go see this guidance counselor, and I, like, really don't want to be in there. I'm like, oh, this is so stupid, whatever. Like, this is a stranger. Like, what am I going to tell her about? Like, I was so closed off, you know, because I could never express myself. And I was so embarrassed to be in there in the first place. But she also didn't have a very warm, welcoming energy that made me want to tell her anything. She started right off with the pretty invasive questions. One of the first questions that she asked me was, has anyone ever put their hands on you at home? Has anyone ever hit you? And, like, at this time, I was only like 12 or 13. Like, at this time, I had been told literally my whole life that this happens to everybody. This is so normal. So I'm like, yeah, obviously. Like, doesn't everybody? This woman, oh, by the way, first she was like, whatever you tell me in this room is confidential, meaning by law, I'm not allowed to tell anybody. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like, yeah. And she stands up so fast out of her chair. She's like, I need to, like, grabs the phone right away. She's like, I need to call your parents. I need to call the principal. I'm like, I started freaking out because I'm like, okay, for, like, looking back on this situation now, she handled that so poorly. That woman needs to be fired, like, genuinely. I started freaking out. I started yelling because I'm like, please don't, like, no, you don't understand. You're going to make it so much worse. And she made it so much worse. When I got home, it was so much worse, so much worse. That was when the gaslighting, like, enabled even more. She's like, this is not abuse. You don't even know what it's like to be abused. I was abused. I was abused every day, which I won't deny that my mom probably was abused every single day. Like, she had it worse than I did. Definitely. I can recognize that. That does not minimize mine, because what she was describing and how they got off of the school with that, she's like, it's spanking, you know, kids, like, spanking. I was 13. I'm gonna spank a 13-year-old child for? You shouldn't spank your child anyway. Anyways, the story that is coming up, it is very detailed and it's very graphic in the details. I do want to just give another warning. It might be triggering, but I wanted it to just be as raw and real as possible, because even though I'm at the place where I'm at now, it doesn't make reliving it any less painful. So just forewarning, I will put the timestamps here if you want to skip this part. It is a lot, but I just wanted to emphasize the severity of the situation and how far of a jump that was to overcome from where I was in that place to where I am now. And I'm really proud of myself. This was the trigger warning, and let's move on. From the beginning of my life, everything was the same. Nothing changed until this moment. I was 17. I hear my dad coming up, and I could just, like, hear I could hear in his voice Like when it's happened so many times, like you just are so aware of it, but you also like feel that like chill in the energy that changes. And I knew what was coming. I knew dude. I knew what was coming. And like in that moment, I was just like so tired of it. My entire body like filled with rage. It was the first time in my life that I ever had a reaction to it at all. And he got really mad that I did that. I don't know, like, it's like your survival instincts kick in. And I never, ever, ever stood up to him before. I wouldn't even put like a hand up to like protect myself. Like I would just sit there and take it and close my eyes and wait for it to be over. I don't know what happened to me that day, that I wasn't willing to do that again. I knew he didn't stand a chance against somebody like him. Literally twice my body weight, military trained, anger issues. Like I'm talking like blackouts, adrenaline filled rage, like just fits. I knew that there was no chance, but I couldn't just let it happen. I don't even remember how it started, but he came at me, and for the first time in my life, I started fighting back. Oh my God, I knew I was making it so much worse, but it was a mental battle at that point for me. But I had to stick up for myself. I had to. I don't even remember the beginning of it, but I just remember like I was getting my shit rocked. But I kept going. Like when you get to that point where you just crack, like something snaps inside of you, like you are ready to die on that hill. I was punching, kicking, like literally I didn't even know where I was going, just aimlessly. And I just kept getting he just kept getting angrier and angrier the more that I was fighting back. I was getting thrown into the ground like over and over and over again. And I don't know where I found the strength, like genuinely, to get up that many times. Like this lasted for so long. Like when I let it happen, I knew I would just close my eyes and I would just wait for it to be over, because I knew if I just sat there and took it, it would be over faster. But this went on for so long. I don't know how I kept fighting, but I did. Like something inside of me, like. And after all those times that I just took it and took it and took it, every time after I got the shit beat out of me growing up and I didn't do anything, when he would come back to, like out of his anger blackout, he would always come and comfort me or apologize. He would come and he would hug me and he would kiss me on top of the head and he would tell me that he's sorry and that he loves me. Like my whole life, I was hearing, I had to listen to how somebody would tell me that they love me after they just beat the shit out of me. There was even one time he said, "I'm sorry, I love you, but this is the only way. You're so stubborn, this is the only way you're gonna learn. It's for your own good." I was so tired of hearing that. Because even though I was so used to it, it didn't feel right. I didn't believe that that was love. That, like, you don't show love by violence. So it got to a point where he started choking me. I was against a wall. He had one of his hands around my neck and the other one over my mouth and nose. And I locked eyes with him. I locked eyes with him as I'm like, I couldn't breathe. Like, I was getting to the point where I was like starting to like black out. Like I was losing consciousness. And in that moment, I looked into his eyes. It was so scary. Like, I'm looking into my dad's eyes. And I can see that he's not even in there. It was like, it looked like he got possessed by a demon. It was so scary. It was so scary for him to look back at me, like look me in the eyes. And keep going. I'm sorry, I have to keep going. I really, like, in that moment, like, I kind of started to panic. I was like, he's gonna kill me. Like, I think he might actually kill me in this moment. That image in my head is probably the most disturbing thing that I have to carry with me for the rest of my life. Everything's going black. That was like what was going through my mind. And some of you might think that sounds like an exaggeration, but I genuinely think that if my mom wasn't there to pull him off of me in that moment, he probably would have. You don't understand unless you've experienced it or you've witnessed somebody who has anger issues, and when they go into that like rage where they are blacked out, they're not even in there. Like, they're filled with so much rage. The body takes over. The rage takes over. They have no cognitive function over their body. Like, they have no idea what they're doing. Like, they don't even remember it after. And I think that that's like probably the worst part of it, is that they do these heinous things when they're in this rage blackout. And they get the luxury of not even remembering what they did. They don't have to carry these disturbing, haunting images around for the rest of their life. Meanwhile, you get to have this burned into your memory. It's really scary too, because like when they're in a rage blackout, that rage, it fills them with like adrenaline, which makes it even scarier. Like, adrenaline gives you like super strength, and it also makes you not think completely rationally. It's your body's literal last chance at survival. I think that moment, like seeing that as I'm like starting to pass out, I know I was already 17, but that moment like really solidified the end of my childhood for me. I just kept thinking back to all the times where he was like, "I'm sorry. I love you. This is for your own good." Like, no, this was not love. None of this was good for me. And I was not going to be gaslit like that anymore. So my mom pulled him off of me I think she saw what I saw. And I just like collapsed on the floor. Like I didn't even know where I was in the house. Like I was still so dizzy. I could hear the fluid like pulsing in my ears. Like my eyeballs like felt like they were like popping out. Like I was gasping for air. And I'm just like coughing. Like I'm just like trying to catch my breath. Like, and then I remember like looking up at him, and I couldn't really see yet. Like I was so disoriented, and I looked up at him. It's like so blurry because I haven't even fully come back to myself yet. But like I had this image of him, and it felt like everything was happening in slow motion. I'm like on the ground. I'm like looking up, but like I just see him. He looks so giant with his hand up in the air like that. I literally felt like I was like an ant about to get squashed under somebody's shoe. And he wasn't done. Like before I could even like see where I was or like register that image, I was getting picked up and then thrown into the ground again. He wasn't done. He wanted more. This is what's so scary about it. I was getting my shit rocked. Like this was so brutal. And I just kept getting up. Like I kept getting up. And it just kept happening. I knew I wasn't going to win. I knew I did not stand a chance. But there was something inside of me that day that just like broke. And it was like I had to prove something to myself. I was able to come to myself for long enough to see the front door, and I just bolted. I ran as fast as I could. I just started banging on everybody's door. Somebody help me. Call 911, please. Call the police. Let me in. Please help me. Like I was begging for anybody to show up. But before I knew it, I was getting snatched up. He was trying to carry me back into the house. But I was not ready to give up. Like I was not willingly going to walk back in the house with that man. A testament to my willpower of how done I was. I was done. I was not taking it anymore. He just pins me on the ground so I couldn't move. But I was still not ready to give up. I was screaming. I'm like laying in the middle of the street. I'm like headbutting him. I'm spitting in his face. But obviously all of those things only made him more angry. He started dragging me back to the house by my hair. It literally felt like my scalp was like about to rip off. And I'm like, where is everybody? Nobody's coming. Nobody is coming to save me. That was like the moment that I realized nobody is coming. I know they heard me. I know they had to have. I was literally getting assaulted in the middle of the street. I was begging for a car to drive by. I was begging for a neighbor to come out. Just somebody get in between this. I don't know where I found the willpower. I think my mom came out and pulled him off of me. Because I remember her saying something like, please stop. You're going to get the cops called on us. But I remember laying there for a second in the street and thinking, nobody's coming. I have to save myself. Once I went back inside, I immediately just went to the bathroom because that was the only place in my house where I could lock the door without somebody asking why the door was locked. I remember just like looking in the mirror, and I'm looking at my face, and I could just see like already a bruise forming like in the outline of his hand. And I'm like, okay, even though that's over, I'm going to have to be reminded of it every time I look at myself. Interestingly enough, too, it was from that really, really disturbing moment. I always wore makeup to school. It wasn't like anything crazy. I mean, I was only 17, but I remember looking at the bruises and everything and just being like, feeling like I didn't want to cover it up anymore. Like I just wanted to expose him and like show, like just wear it, what just happened. So whatever, I get in the bathtub and I hear a knock on the door. I'm like, oh God, what is going on? Okay, it's Mom, can I come in? So I let her in. And, my mom was really, really upset. She was crying. I don't want to make it look like my dad is the only bad guy in that part of the story, because the other things, like, I didn't realize until way later. There was many times where my mom literally laid on top of me to beg him to not. But then there was other times where she called him in knowing that he would do it, so they both enabled each other in their own ways. I always wanted to go away to college, but my parents made it abundantly clear that that was not happening, that I would be going to community college and living at home. However, my mom came in and she was like, I think it's best if you leave and go away somewhere to college. Because this was like, the beginning of my senior year. And I had already gotten accepted into a couple of schools. Thank God I did, because my mom was like, this isn't good for any of us. You need to leave. And I know it was coming from a place of her trying to help me get out of this situation, but it still felt in a way like it was made out to be my fault again. She saw all the bruises and she was like, you have to cover that before you go to school. And I was just like thinking, I'm like, dude, like all the times, like it was just so ironic to me because I had literally gotten beaten up for wearing makeup before. The irony of it all was so insane to me. But, like at that point, I was just like so relieved to hear that I would be able to get away. Once I got out of the shower, I was still just so numb. I didn't even want to look at my dad, much less talk to him. And he walks over with the usual spiel. He tries to give me a hug, say that he's sorry and that he loves me. And I literally just pushed him away. And I told him, I am never speaking to you again. Don't touch me. Don't tell me that you love me. I hate you. I don't ever want to see you again. I'm never speaking to you again. You are not my dad. This is not love. I was so done. And I meant it. Like I was so for real. He got upset that I had that reaction, which is mind-boggling to me. He's changed so much. He's not like this anymore. But it was just really, really, really insane to see somebody just get so angry that you didn't accept their apology for something just so horrifying that your memory blocks it out, how horrifying it was. And you're mad that they didn't forgive you when you just said, sorry, I love you. If you were really sorry, you wouldn't have done it so many times. Okay, the worst part is over now. If you are still here, thank you for being here. I'm really sorry if that was triggering. Filming that, as hard as it was to say those things out loud while looking in a camera and repeat that story, it was so cathartic and liberating. And I actually feel a lot better. I think that was the first time that I had told the story in such detail, pretty much since it happened. And just saying it out loud, it was super healing, because when I was writing the outline for this episode, I didn't even realize until I was writing the script and recalling the story that I experienced what I think is a PTSD flashback. I don't really know. I heard that nothing like this has ever happened to me before, but apparently I had blocked out certain parts of that story because that's just what our body does to survive when we're dealing with deep trauma like this. I remember I was sitting on my couch and, I'm crying, I'm processing this because it's even though I've come to the point where I am right now, it was still very painful to relive that. So as I'm writing the story, I get that flashback of that memory that I had blocked out. And in that moment, I was in it, but I don't know how to describe it except for the way that I literally felt like I was there. It's all I could see. It took over my actual vision. I couldn't see what was actually in front of me. All I was seeing was I was transported back into time. So much to the point where I had my computer in my lap. I was laying on the couch like this, had my computer in my lap. I actually threw my computer and I started running away. And then like by the time I had gotten like maybe 10, 15 feet away, like I had like come to myself a little bit and I realized that I'm safe. Like this isn't happening again. You know, it's just a memory. Like I'm not living it. I don't know if that's what people with PTSD experience. If it is, I'm so sorry. That sounds so horrible to have to go through something like that all the time. But, you know, bringing up those memories, having that reaction, crying about it, like releasing that, it was releasing stored trauma and stored emotion out of my body. And that really, really, really helped me. As painful as it is to talk about, that was the first time I was talking about it. Now I can talk about it without having that same reaction. I've already edited that part of the video. I have had to watch it back like 1,000 times in order to do so. And I'm talking about it right now. And I'm in a completely different place than when I started filming this video a month ago. Today is 11/11. After I didn't talk to my dad for 6 months, I didn't realize the hole that my absence would leave was literally the catalyst for him to change. I stood my ground. I didn't talk to him for 6 months. I was only 17. I lived in the same house as him. It was weird at first. It was very weird. It's like sad to think about how alienated I was from him because we actually became very, very close once we repaired it. But had I not set my boundaries, had I not been so done, I broke the cycle just by doing something different, by leaving. I caused him to feel so uncomfortable with himself that he changed. Because we cannot change other people. We can only change ourselves. But sometimes the discomfort of our absence is the catalyst that causes radical changes in people's lives. So sometimes I think I came here just to make people feel really uncomfortable. I think that is my superpower. That I can make you really, really, really safe, or I can make you really, really, really uncomfortable. And I think that that's a gift. I don't believe in being the bigger person. I think that making people very uncomfortable with their horrible behavior makes them take accountability for their own actions because you are giving them a direct consequence. Sometimes you are the change that you are seeking from other people because you removing yourself, you setting a boundary, you changing yourself. You are breaking generational curses. You are breaking karmic cycles. You are powerful for doing that. Everything that you've endured, and I don't know everybody's situation, you do not ever have to forgive your parents, ever. It is your choice. It is your prerogative. And don't let anybody else tell you. I don't want to hear literally one person, oh, my parents did this and I turned out fine. We're aiming for a little bit higher than bare minimum, Becky, okay? A little bit higher. And are you really fine? Because you're kind of being a bitch. So anyways, so even though I just took the most brutal beating of my life in that, I didn't see it this way at the time. But even though there was never any question or chance of me winning a fight with a grown man, I still look back at this story and I don't feel like I lost. Because I stood up for myself, knowing that I was completely outmatched, but I stood up to what scared me most in my life at that time. How did I lose? I think that the only way that you lose is if you stay complacent. You don't stand up for yourself ever. And I'm not saying that if you remember, this was not a recommendation to repeat, okay? This is not advice. This is my story, okay? I don't think that when you uphold your boundaries and you stick up for yourself and you stand up and face the thing that scares you most in the world, how is that losing? I think you win every time when you stand up for yourself. Because even if you lose, you did something that was so brave, so fucking scary, and you didn't know how it was going to turn out. I didn't realize the ripple effect that I would have on my family by just being done, saying enough of this. Like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. Like, enough. So how can I say that I lost? Because of what happened with me, I didn't see anybody. None of us got hit after that. I got to watch my little sister grow up without so much as a hair touched on her head. Even though it was literally one of the worst days of my life, I knew that I made a huge, lasting change that echoed. It rippled out into other people. I didn't realize that it was going to do that. How can anybody say that I lost the fight when that's what happened? Because if I could stop it from happening, not only to myself, but to anybody else in the family, to make somebody so uncomfortable, to give them an actual consequence to their actions so that they finally change them instead of just saying that they're sorry. That's really empowering to come to that realization, especially I was so young. So I talk a lot about how I think our life path or, time moves in the Fibonacci sequence, and, you repeat the same life lessons, but it's like those spiral staircases. The next time it comes up in your life, it might seem like that identical situation, but you come at it and you can see it from the next level of the staircase from a higher perspective, and you come at it with more wisdom. So I was home for the summer. It was nothing that had to do with me even, but I was packing my suitcase and all of a sudden my dad came at me and he lifted his hand in the air, and I just looked him dead in the eye. I had tears in my eyes. It really hurt because I thought we were past that. As he's standing there like this, I looked him dead in the eyes, tears in my eyes. I was like, go ahead, do it. You know what's going to happen. You know that this will be the last time that you ever speak to me if you do it. That'll be your decision. Yours, all yours. And he literally, I could see the thought process happening in his mind. And he put his hand down and he walked away and he went upstairs. I know that that's not a perfect response. It's not. But from where we came before, I was really, really proud. I know, even though, it really hurt that we came to circle back to that. But that is nowhere near the last time that it happened. Nowhere near it. Where I couldn't even see my dad in there. The fact that I could see him analyzing and thinking about the potential consequences of him repeating the same thing that he did in the past. And that change comes from having our boundaries, from protecting ourselves and our peace and not being human doormats. Sometimes we are the catalyst. Sometimes karma comes through us. Sometimes other people's lessons come through us. And it just felt like a really powerful moment. And looking back on it, I am really, really, really proud of him for having the awareness. No, he didn't react perfectly. I'm not a perfect human being either. I fuck up all the time. I will admit that. And I take accountability for my actions. But he didn't do it. He didn't follow through. And he apologized later for it. He said, I'm sorry, that wasn't at you. And that was it. I was 19 at that time. It's never, ever, ever happened again. Not even a thought of it. My wisdom is a product of all the pain that I've gone through. For where I'm going, I needed to learn how to transmute that pain into power. I needed to learn how to be resilient. This is how I stand up for people too, because baby, I can take it. You cannot hurt my feelings. I will hurt yours though. If I see you bullying somebody, not on my watch, babe. Do you see any watches? Do you see any watches? That's because it's not happening on mine. If I ever see some shit like that, I don't care if you're a stranger. I don't care if you're a cat, a dog, an alien. I don't care if you're purple. Hell no. This is something that I had to integrate both parts of myself very recently. There was a point in my life where I was too abrasive and I didn't know how to hold space for people. It made me very, very uncomfortable for people to be emotional with me. And then there was also a time in my life where I was giving too much love and holding way too much space for people and pouring out way more than I had to give. And there was no balance in that. And I realized it doesn't even have to be a perfect balance all the time. I always say either I'm a mirror or I'm the moon. I either reflect your light or your darkness. And I feel like people come to me when they need to be reminded of who they are, whether they need to be reminded of how magical and amazing they are, and they need me to hold that space for them and to magnify that, or they need me to hold up a mirror in front of them, one of those magnifying mirrors where you can see every single one of your pores to show you what ugly energy you're putting out into the world. And the universe really tested me. How much do you trust yourself that this is the path? Because when you put up those boundaries, you stand up for yourself or you stand up for other people, people will gaslight you into thinking that you are a bitch or you have an attitude. Do I have an attitude? Or do you just not like that I'm showing you back? I genuinely, I can't stand when people tell me like, be the bigger person. Don't waste your energy. Don't stoop to their level. No, how is being the bigger person letting them walk away? Because I don't give a what they say to me. I could take it, baby. Like, if you've seen the shit that I've been through, like the trials and tribulations, you can't hurt my feelings. Like, it's not going to affect me. So come at me. I have this ability to see things in people, just in their energy. They don't even have to say it out loud. A lot of the time, it's something really beautiful in people that they can't see in themselves, or maybe they just need a reminder of. But I can also see the insecurity that you're wearing in your energy. And I will hurt your feelings. I will hurt your feelings so that you don't go and do that to somebody else, because I want you to go home and sit with your feelings. And some people might say, oh my God, that's not very love and light of you. That's not very spiritual of you. Who said, like, sorry, I did not go through everything that I went through and come to this planet to make people feel comfortable so they can go walk off and say that to somebody else, where that somebody might internalize that. That could be somebody's 13th reason. Do you think I'm going to let somebody walk around like that in the world? Absolutely not. Whatever you put out into the world, I will not only mirror it back to you, I will magnify it. So how you feel about me is always a direct reflection of you. I don't believe in being the bigger person as walking away. I believe in being the bigger person. The fuck? All of my growth came from being very uncomfortable. I didn't come here to make people comfortable. What if I came here to make people feel very uncomfortable? Growth is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. If I came here to make people feel comfortable, don't you think I would have had a better example of comfort in my own life? I think that I am both the healer and the teacher. And I think that sometimes teaching is a lesson. And sometimes those lessons are hard reality checks. I've been there at times in my life. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I have done a lot of work on myself. Plenty of times in my life where I've realized I don't like myself right now. I don't like who I am in this environment. I don't like who I am around this person. I don't like myself, period. But I am genuinely in a place right now where I not only love myself and fully accept myself as I am, as this current evolution of me. And even though I'm only 28, I've gone through thousands of evolutions of me. I'm constantly changing. I actually like myself. And that's why I genuinely don't give a if anybody likes me or not, if anybody paints me as the villain or the saint in their story. I don't care if you don't like me. You don't even like yourself. You don't. I can see it. It's literally written all over your aura. So yeah, that was another lesson that I learned from, like being bullied by my own family, by my own parents every single day, because I already hated myself during all of that. And I don't want to make this sound like I had like a horrendous life. Maybe I did. Maybe I'm glazing over or sugarcoating it too much. But there were good moments. And, maybe that is something that I'm still working through, or maybe that's my growth. I don't know yet. This is going to be a forever process for me where I'm wondering, but I never had to worry about if I was going to have anything to eat, anything like that. I was taken care of. Like my basic necessities were met, besides for like safety, but I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I know it's not funny, but we all like deal with it in different ways, right? I know that I chose this life for myself, and that is like so hard to believe when you like are still in that mentality. Like you're like, why the fuck would I choose this? Like genuinely, why on earth would I choose this? I asked myself that question for years, and I would shift it from victim to survivor and then back down into victim so many times. It could happen like 5 times in one day. You could go through that cycle where you're asking yourself, why did I choose this? It just all came together. You know how I know that the universe wouldn't have given you this if you were not strong enough to handle it? There were so many times in my life where it just got so out of hand, not even like in childhood, like well into my adulthood. The issues like didn't stop in my life. It's just like constantly learning how to thrive through chaos and how to grow and evolve from these like really, really, really hard events happening in my life. And it's hard to see them as a blessing in the moment, but I always find a lesson in it. I always find a way to level up in it. Like now I'm like, what the else you got, you know? But there have been moments where I was so close, like I had no will to live. Like there was actually moments where I either decided, and in that moment, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. The universe is like, cut, it's too much. We're doing too much, pause, or somebody will come in and fix it all. There was one time I was like contemplating, like I couldn't anymore. I had no willpower left in me to keep going. And then all of a sudden, you guys might know her, Poppy Cork. She FaceTimes me. She's my psychic Baddie friend. She's a really, really powerful medium. She FaceTimes me like out of the blue. And she's like, I'm going to come drive to you. She lived 4 hours away driving. I was like, no, it's really fine. Like I've always been somebody to deal with everything internally and on my own. Like I didn't have anybody else to, like, I couldn't leave the house. Yeah, Poppy came, she saved my life. There was a moment in the more recent years where I was feeling those life-ending thoughts and I was so numb. I was so heartbroken. Like this was nothing to do with my family. I always take baths when I'm like feeling really depressed for whatever reason. And I remember like laying in the bath, like just so numb, like just completely numb. Like I was so still, like the water literally looked like glass. I could see the reflection of the ceiling. Like I just couldn't move. And that water went from scorching hot. I laid in there until it was ice cold. Like there was not a thought going through my head. Like genuinely, I was not okay. And then all of a sudden it was like another interstellar moment, which is so crazy. Like when you finally come full circle and you meet yourself back where you were. I'm psychic and I get messages, but this voice that I heard was my voice, but I knew it wasn't my voice, like the me that was presently sitting there in the tub, like not moving. And my voice was going, get up, get out of the bathtub. And like, I remember like responding to it, like thoughts in my head. I was like, I can't, I literally can't. And I knew that other voice wasn't me because I didn't have the willpower to get up or to tell myself to get up. And that voice started screaming at me, get the up, get the up, like literally screaming until like it was like a robot. Like I just like stood up and I snapped out of it. And I just started getting my life back together, like in that moment. And then like fast forward months later when I'm finally feeling better, I randomly think of me in that tub and I'm telling her, get the up. It's like genuinely like probably a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy, that I'm losing my mind right now. I've never been better. A lot of people have been asking me if I was okay because I've been like so adamant about just staying home and like processing all of this, like so I can level up. And it happens so much faster when I put in the intentional work. Yes, to answer your question, guys, I've literally never been better. Genuinely, like it feels good to say that. That moment of power and realization where it literally, I just shed like 100 pounds off of me. It was like the biggest like feeling of clarity and alignment. And, you know, I think it's like moments like those that line up where the you that you are now is proud of all the versions that came before them, because you would not be you today without them. They got you here.
There was actually a piece of my Matrix Destiny chart that was so just extra little confirmation in here. What does this say? I found it earlier. It says, you are afraid to tell the truth and even the information or experience which you are sure about and have lived through your own experience. You want to share it, but at the same time, you are scared there may be some consequences in the future. Why is that sentence so loud? But it just perfectly encapsulated this experience. I don't want anybody else to feel ashamed for this, but I've been carrying this shame and it was never mine to carry. If they ever do see this, I would just tell them, I'm sorry if it hurts you. That's not my intention at all. I have to speak up for the people that are going through this right now, but this is my experience. It's my story to tell, and it's my truth, but this is something that I need to do for the people who don't know how to navigate this by themselves. Some people also might come for me for saying, how can you say these things? How can you expose your family like this? Because it happened to me.
How could they have done it in the first place? And how could I have gotten to a place where I not only went through it, but I forgave them? That's fucking magical. That is alchemy. So you can keep your opinions to yourself. If you've never been through anything like this, consider it a blessing that you don't have to ever think about what it would be like to make a video like this because it's never happened to you. What a blessing. So if you don't have anything nice to say or you're a victim blamer, please shut your mouth. Like literally tape it shut. You sound like an idiot. Anyways, I was somebody who broke generational curses and cycles. I am healing lifetimes, bloodlines of ancestral trauma, of generational trauma. How are you going to use that against me? I experienced all of this and I'm sharing it now so I can be a voice and a channel for anybody else who has ever gone through anything similar. And I would do it all over again, go through all of that pain all over again in every single lifetime, every single one, if it means that I can help one person be less alone in this, because it is some painful, painful shit to go through. And to go through it alone is a nightmare. If you are still going through something like this, or you've gone through it and you've never really talked about it before, I just want to send you so much love. I want to give you the biggest hug, like humanly possible. Like, I just want to squeeze you. Like, I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry that you are going through this, especially if you're going through it alone. But you don't have to go through it alone. And I encourage you not to. I can be here with you, but I think that there's always somebody who should know what is going on in your life. If you are too scared to talk to, a therapist or a counselor, because maybe you're a minor, if you don't know, they do have to legally tell somebody if you are a minor and you tell them that you are being abused. If that is your goal, that's great. If it's not and you end up in a situation like I did, maybe that's not the best idea if it'll make it worse. But if you are not a minor, they cannot tell anybody. You can talk about it. If you are a minor, you should find somebody that you trust that will know what is going on with you, so they can keep an eye on you, so you can have somebody to talk to. There should never at any moment of your life be a time where you are completely alone and the only people that know about this are the ones that are doing it to you and yourself. If you are still watching, which I'm assuming you are if you're seeing this part, thank you so much for being here and listening to my story. Whether you can relate to it or it inspired you or you hated the whole thing, just thank you for listening to it. I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me. I really feel like this is something that needs to be talked about more. I could make this video probably 3-4 days long, because if you've been through anything similar, you know that it's like this doesn't even scratch the surface. That's how this whole crazy dynamic works with family trauma and generational cycles and toxic dynamics within families. Is there's this silence and this shame about it. That's why these things keep happening. I think if we shamed the abusers as much as we did the victims, people would be a lot more careful about what kind of people they're hurting. The goal of this was not to get sympathy or to trauma dump. It is the last video I wanted to make, but I really just wanted to open a larger conversation around this, because I had to learn how to navigate this on my own, and it was very difficult. So if I could go back in time and help my younger self get through it, like, I would, but I can't do that, unfortunately. Only in those memories that I heal. But I can help somebody else, and I can maybe help somebody realize that what they've gone through was not normal. There was nothing normal about it. Maybe I can help somebody else realize that their trauma is not their identity. Trauma is not a personality trait, and that's not a job. I can say that as a traumatized person. You do not have to internalize this. You will not lose any part of your personality if you decide to let go of it. It's still going to have shaped you into the person that you are, but you do not need to carry around the box anymore
once you are outside of the box. Thank you for being so patient. I know that this episode is 3 weeks late, and this is exactly why I always say I don't tell anybody anything until it is done. What you actually just saw is pretty much the finale of what I've been working on for the past 4 months. I put every second, every minute, every hour of free time and energy that I've had into this so that I would not abandon it like I did in the past. It was a lot of work, but I genuinely do love this. I love connecting with you guys. I love sharing the things that I've learned and I've experienced. And if it can help anybody, that really gives me a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment. So let me know what you guys want to see, if you enjoyed this video or if this helped you in any way. When I say I'm like moving on from this aspect of my life, I just mean I'm not staying silent anymore. I'm not keeping this a secret anymore. I'm not feeling embarrassed about it. I'm owning my shit. I'm owning every single part of who I am and all the things that happened to me and made me into who I am today. So if you guys have any questions or you want to reach out to me privately, you can DM me or I can make a video about it. If there are any parts of this that you are trying to navigate in your life, we deserve to have a voice. So I want to open this conversation and give a voice to the voiceless, to those of us who have been silenced for so long. Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. If you are watching here on YouTube, please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe and let me know what you thought of this episode. If you are listening on Spotify, please make sure to follow the show. I also am competing in a contest. I will leave the link in the description. If you guys could vote for me, I'm in 3rd place, but I'm trying to get to 1st because I'm trying to compete and go on another secret mission. So I will leave that for you below. And I will be opening back up my books, my sessions in probably early to mid-January after the holidays. I'm also going to be doing astrology readings. So stay tuned for that. I love you guys so, so, so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.